It's time for Chapter 5 of Lucky Lure at Arrow Point by Mary Daem. Jamie squirmed and Minty squirmed, too. Grandma? Yes, dear? You know that big box in my bedroom? What's in it? I thought you hadn't noticed it. That's really a carpenter's chest, and it belonged to your grandfather. He carved his initials on the top of the box. Jamie nodded smugly. He'd figured that out for himself. But what's inside? Can you get the lock open? May I look in it? There are all kinds of things inside that box. Your grandfather gave your daddy the key on a rainy, rainy day, and that's what I'll do for you. It's a sort of treasure box, Jamie, and it's yours now, but you'll have to wait. Jamie didn't want to wait. He wanted to open that box right that very moment. His chin began to wobble and he sniffed hard. Put Minty in the house now and we'll go and see the hens. Can't Minty come too? Why, that big red rooster would peck him if he went in there. Jamie's eyes widened. He wasn't sure that he wanted to go in with the hens. He didn't want to be pecked, but Grandma was going right along and he didn't want to be left behind. It was dark in the hen house and very cool. The air was full of dust and it smelled of chickens. Jamie kept close to his grandmother. He blinked his eyes, and he could see nest boxes placed along the wall. Sitting on two of the nests were big brown hens. Their beady eyes watched as the pair approached. They're watching me, Grandma, Jamie whispered. Why, of course they are, she answered softly. They think we're going to steal their eggs, and we are. Watch. Jamie stared as his grandmother moved purposely forward. She slid a hand beneath the soft feathers of the biggest hen, and the hen scolded in a clucking, clacking voice. Mrs. Turner brought her hand back out, and in her palm was a lovely brown egg. Jamie took it from her and held it against his cheek. It was warm and hard, and it was the very first time he had held an egg fresh from the hen. There were 3 more eggs waiting for them, and when they had gathered them, Jamie led the way out of the hen house, carefully shutting the gate behind them. He carried his egg, while they made their way slowly to the goat shed, and Jamie sat down on the little stool which Grandma used when she milked. Could I learn to milk, do you think? Jamie asked, getting up from the stool. Why, I suppose you could. I'll teach you before the summer is finished, his grandmother promised. Next they went to the woodshed, and from there to the orchard. Jamie was getting tired, but there was so much to see. There was an apple tree bursting into flower. He hadn't known that pear blossoms were white, and the way the brown bees burrowed into the blossoms made him laugh aloud. He stretched up as tall as he could and touched a petal with the tip of one finger. They're real, aren't they? Jamie's eyes were as big as saucers. Mrs. Turner snapped off a branch that was bending with bloom. She handed it to Jamie. We'll take that into the house and put it into my blue jar. I like a bit of springtime in the house. Jamie held the spray of flowers as if it would break. In his other hand, he held the big brown egg. Behind the screen door, Minty was waiting. Jamie felt as if it were Christmas all over again. And suddenly, besides being tired, he was as hungry as a bear. When's dinner? He asked as he stuffed the flowers into the jar. Mrs. Turner shook up the fire, and she cooked the brown egg. Jamie thought it looked too beautiful to break, but he was so hungry that he broke it anyway, and he ate every speck. He ate brown bread, too, and raisin cookies, and when he had finished, he crawled up on top of the red and white starred quilt, and he shut his eyes, and he slept so soundly that he didn't even feel his puppy jump from the big box onto the foot of the bed and curl up beside him. He slept so long that Mrs. Turner got all her work done and had a nap herself. And when he woke up, the first thing he saw was the carpenter's chest. I wish Grandma would let me look in it now, he whispered to Minty, who had awakened too, and was thumping his fat little tail against a quilt. Then Jamie got up and went to the window. Perhaps it was raining. He had slept a long time. But of course it wasn't raining. The sun was making twinkles on the blue, blue lake. Jamie could hardly wait to go outside again. With Minty under his arm, he went in search of his grandmother. May we go down to the lake, please? Of course, laddie. I was just waiting for you 2 boys to wake up. and she laughed as she put down her knitting and filled the pockets of her white apron with raisin cookies. That's the end of Chapter 5.